Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jesse, and today I'm bringing you another Yap Fest. I'm ready to yap it up today. I hope that you guys are okay with that. Today I am bringing you a book unhaul, a brutal book unhaul. I've been working really hard this year at kind of getting my collection to a place where I feel like it represents me as a reader, because that's what I want from my book collection. I want you to be able to look at the books that I have on my shelf and be like, I kind of have an understanding of the books that he enjoys. Mind you, even though this is a pretty brutal book unhaul that I'm filming right now, and there's some books on here that might shock you that I'm getting rid of, I still feel like there are several books on this shelf that need to go. I'm just having a hard time like letting myself get there, because I'm somebody that has like a nostalgic attachment to books, and that attachment makes it really hard for me to part ways with them. I know a lot of people love having a book collection that's more of like a trophy case situation where you want to just like own every book that you've read, and I used to be that way, but I feel like I found over the years that I don't enjoy having books on my bookshelves that I didn't enjoy, that I didn't love, or that I feel like don't represent me. So I'm really working on getting to a place where I have a bit of a curated collection. But even after doing this book unhaul that I'm filming currently, I know that there's still a lot more work to do. I'm also getting ready to do a big bookshelf organization situation. I'm going to be putting all my book covers back on my books. And so before I did that, I decided that I wanted to just like go through my shelves and part ways with some more books. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to show you guys some books that I'm unhauling, and I'm going to yap it up in the process. Let's get started. I'm going to start with one that might be the most controversial. Some of you are going to be like celebrating and being like, yes, finally, and some of you are going to be like, what? No, why? But for me, this series is one that I really enjoyed and found entertaining, but ultimately I don't have that much attachment to be honest. I'm getting rid of the Mortal Instruments series. These books are really fun. I had a really good time with them. I enjoyed them, but I don't think any of them really ever reached 5-star status for me, and I have a lot of gripes with this series as well. Even though I had a lot of fun, there were times where I just was honestly rage reading a bit. There were so many decisions throughout the series that were made that just had me like aggressively shaking my head in disbelief. And while this is the OG, it's the thing that started it all with the Shadowhunter series, I am ready to part ways with it. I have no real attachment to this series, and I don't feel the need to keep these books. I'm only going to be keeping the Cassandra Clare series that I feel a strong attachment to. So for example, I'm 100% going to be keeping the Infernal Devices, and I will be keeping the Dark Artifices trilogy. Even though I haven't finished that trilogy, I really need to get back to that trilogy and just finish it off. I have one book left, and for some reason I've just been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. Actually, I know the reason why I've been putting it off. I've been putting it off because I feel like I need to reread book 1 and book 2, and I just feel like that is such a process. Like, those books are not small. Those books are pretty big, even though they're like easy to read. So I should just like bite the bullet and go for it, but honestly, I will probably procrastinate it for another 3 to 5 years. Anyway, I have a lot of fun memories with this series. I had a good time reading them and discussing them. I'm pretty sure my reviews for these books are still public on this channel. I would probably cringe my way watching through the review videos, but all that to be said, I am ready to part ways with the series. And honestly, if I ever want to revisit these books, the library is a beautiful place. That's one thing that I have like learned to love this year, is the library. It saved me so much money, and I also just like love going to the library and browsing shelves. Like, it has changed my reading life for the better. Goodbye to these babes. They gave me some great times, but I just feel like I have changed so much as a reader, and I don't foresee myself ever reading them again. So they gotta go. With that, I will also be getting rid of this special edition of City of Bones, which I think is really pretty. But I remember when this came out, a lot of people were like, that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. I think it's stunning. I think it's really pretty. I love like the gold edges. It's just a really nice edition in my opinion. There's artwork on the inside, but I just don't need to keep this. While it's pretty, I just don't need to keep it, because I'm also just never going to read this edition, and I would rather just like pass it on to somebody else that's actually going to read this specific edition of the book. The other Cassandra Clare series that I am getting rid of is one that actually like pains me. It makes me so sad. It makes me so upset, because I felt like there was so much potential with it. You probably know what's coming if you've been following this channel for the past few years. The Last Hours trilogy. This trilogy makes me so upset, because I feel like it had so much potential. I feel like there was so much build up for this. There was so much excitement because of where it sat in the Shadowhunter timeline, but I was so underwhelmed by these books. It makes me so sad. The first one was okay. I kind of gave it a pass because it was the first book in the trilogy. It has a lot of setting up to do, but then the second book came and I was completely underwhelmed. I was like, oh, this is such a filler book. I'm not happy about it. It really feels like a bridge into the third book. Then I read the third book and I was so annoyed. So annoyed. There were like a few character moments in here that I really loved and appreciated, but outside of those moments, I was so just annoyed, just so annoyed. I'm still frustrated thinking about it, to be honest. And like looking at this trilogy every day on my bookshelf just makes me so upset. That's a lie. I don't come in here and like look at it every day and get upset. But every time I do see it on my bookshelf, I'm like, oh, what wasted potential. What wasted potential. It makes me so upset. So I am going to be getting rid of this trilogy, which I also, in buying this trilogy, was purchasing the Illumicrate special editions of these books because I thought that it was going to be my next all-time favorite Cassandra Clare trilogy. Like, I was like, this is going to rival the Infernal Devices. Like, finally, somebody's stepping up to the plate and is going to punch out the Infernal Devices for one of my favorite Cassandra Clare trilogies. And then I read the trilogy and I was so annoyed. I was so upset. But like, as they were releasing, I was buying these really beautiful Illumicrate editions. These beauties right here, I'll show you each edition. This is book 1, so pretty, so stunning. Book 2, Chain of Iron, again, so pretty. And book 3, Chain of Thorns, like, they're so pretty, but I'm not keeping them. I don't want to keep them. I don't want them a part of my collection. All that time I spent reading them, regret. All the money I spent on these books, regret. Nothing but regret. I mean, okay, there were a few moments throughout the trilogy that I enjoyed. They were mostly just like small little character interactions though, and I really loved Jesse. He was one of my favorite characters, not because we share the same name. He was just like the most interesting character to me, and everybody else, truthfully, what I truly feel is that I feel like a lot of the characters just feel like other characters in the Shadowhunter universe. And I just wanted more interesting and new personalities, not like copycat personalities of other well-loved characters. That's just my personal opinion though. If you loved this trilogy, I'm so happy for you, but it just did not work out for me. I'm so sad about it. Good riddance to these books. I'm also getting rid of my Illumicrate edition of Starling House. I read this last year and really enjoyed it, but it wasn't like top tier for me. Like, I think I landed on like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I felt like for me, the concept wasn't executed all that well. There were certainly elements about it that I liked. I think specifically I really liked the writing style and the atmosphere, but everything else I was kind of just like let down by. But I was hosting a reading stream recently with my channel members, and one of my channel members read it and really loved it. So I'm going to be sending this to her so that she can have it because she loved the book. I want somebody that like actually loved this book to own this book. I'm okay with not owning a copy. I'm also getting rid of this copy of A Study in Drowning, which is also an Illumicrate edition, which is really pretty, by the way. It's got really nice edges. It's got pretty gold foiling on the cover. I think it has some nice in papers. Oh yeah, those are actually really pretty. But I was so underwhelmed by this book. I was so excited about it. I feel like maybe that's why I was so underwhelmed by it, because I kind of like really worked myself up to it. And there was a lot of hype surrounding this book as well. I got into it and I was just so sad. I was so sad. The characters felt really dull to me, and it was one of those situations where the concept of the book sounded so much better than the actual execution. Like, when I got into the book, I was pretty much immediately disappointed by the concept. I feel like there is a lot of really interesting themes for sure that are explored in this book, and I think that those are done really well, but everything else just sort of fell flat for me. I will say the one thing that I really loved about this book was the atmosphere. I feel like had the plot been stronger, had the characters been stronger, I so would have adored this book. It would have been a 5 out of 5 stars for me, but the author was not able to pull it off in my opinion, and so I am just going to be passing this book along to somebody else who really loved this book. Next up, I'm getting rid of this book called Paradise Rot. I read this last year as a part of a vlog where I read the weirdest books you guys have ever read, and it was definitely a weird experience, that's for sure. It was a really interesting read and I had a lot of fun with it, but it was just absurd and I really didn't feel like I got much out of it by the end of it. It's a book that references pee so many times, and I felt by the end of it that like maybe the pee was like supposed to be representing something specific, and I just could not wrap my head around that specific thing. I was like, what does the pee mean? What is with all the piss? I just never was able to like grasp the pee. What did the pee mean? What was the pee there for? I actually also annotated this book. I outlined it. I put a lot of messages throughout the book, so maybe I shouldn't be getting rid of this book, but maybe it'll be a nice little treat for somebody that picks it up at a thrift store. I've actually always wanted to find an annotated book at a thrift store, just because I feel like it'd be a lot of fun to read somebody else's thoughts while you're reading a book, but I've yet to strike gold. I need to do some more thrifting soon. Not me using that as an excuse to go thrifting. This note right here is actually killing me. I underlined this line that says, "From my bed I could hear her pee at night, a faint, muted trickling against the toilet bowl, which made me imagine, half asleep, thin, flowing golden ribbons." And then next to it I said, "The amount of times peeing is mentioned? Question mark, question mark, question mark." I hope whoever picks this book up from the thrift store has a really fun time reading all my thoughts. Next up, I'm getting rid of 2 Grady Hendrick's books. I have 3 Grady Hendrick's books. These 2, Bad Astronauts and the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And then I also own Horror Store. I've not read Horror Store yet, and I've not read the Southern Book Club yet. I'm going to keep Horror store because a lot of you guys have mentioned the fact that you think that I would like horror store based off my book and reader preferences. So I'm gonna hold on to that one and eventually try to get around to that one. But these two I'm just getting rid of. This one I read like half of and I just could not connect to it. I was having such a hard time. It's supposed to be like a sci-fi comedy, but I never thought anything was funny. I just thought it was like really boring, which is like probably the worst insult you can give a book, is the fact that like you found it to be boring. But like, I was bored. It was a snooze fest and I couldn't do it. With the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, I've mostly just heard not so great things about this book, specifically from some of my channel members, and I'm just gonna take their word for it and run with it. I've heard a lot of people just feel pretty iffy about it. I think specifically it's his women characters that a lot of people have an issue with. They just don't feel like they are executed all that well. And so I'm just gonna trust and get rid of this book. I also just feel like Grady Hendrick is not somebody for me because I've tried reading a couple of his things now and I just have not connected to any of them. I wanted to read his stuff because I feel like he's a horror author that is kind of respected, really well loved. And then I started reading his books and I just don't think that they're for me. I just don't think that they align with my reader preferences, with my reader taste. I'm not necessarily like blocking him completely and never going to read anything from him ever again, but I'm going to be very like cautious about any of his books. I will probably mostly get his books from the library. If there is one that comes out that I feel interested in or the pull to read that book, I will just run to the library. He's one of those authors where I just can't really trust that I'm going to like their books, so I would rather borrow it than buy it. These ones are leaving the collection and I can't say I'm sad to see them go. I also talked about this one in my recent DNF video, and that is Legends and Lattes. I went into this book expecting to love it. Like, I had really kind of like worked myself up to the fact that like I thought that I was going to love cozy fantasy, and this was like my first real step into the cozy fantasy genre, and I was like, oh no, there's something wrong with me because I'm the one person ever that doesn't like this book. But turns out there's a lot of you out there that also didn't really connect with this book, didn't really vibe with it, which made me feel safe. Like, I felt a little validated. I felt a little comforted by the fact that a lot of you guys also didn't find yourselves really enjoying this. I have read a few other cozy fantasy books that have worked for me, so I don't think it's cozy fantasy as a whole. I think there are a few reasons as to why this one didn't work for me. One is that it was obviously incredibly hyped up. It's hard to go into a hyped book with low expectations, so I'm sure that that alone had a bit of an effect on me. But I also found that I really need a bit more of a plot. And this one really truly is just kind of like vibes. Like, there are a few things that happen, but it's mostly just like chillin', vibin', cafe vibes. And I just needed a little bit more. Goodbye, Legends and Lattes. I'm sorry it didn't work out. The next three books kind of go together. They are these weird romance books that I read at the beginning of the year. I went through a phase where I was just like having a silly, goofy time reading these really strange romances. So we've got a balloon animal romance, we've got a pillow romance, and we've got a door romance. It was a weird phase, okay? Like, looking back on it, I'm like, what was I doing? It was fun though. Like, I had a good time. I have no regrets. What I do regret doing is physically buying these books. I should have just got them on my Kindle. But I feel like sometimes, and maybe some booktubers will understand this, you feel the pressure to like have the physical book for the video. But I'm trying to move past that because I think it's so silly and it's also like so wasteful. Like, I did not need to buy these books and now I'm just going to be donating them. I don't like that. So, calling myself out right here, right now. I will not be doing that moving forward. I'm going to be, again, very careful about what I buy. I'm also going to be very mindful. I'm going to use the library. I'm going to use my Kindle, and I'm just going to be more thoughtful in terms of book buying. So anyway, just over here canceling myself, but I do want to like call myself out because like that's ridiculous to like feel like I have to buy the physical book just to have it in the video, and now 8 months later I'm donating them. Like, I'm stopping that bad habit right here, right now. But anyway, these are all leaving my collection. I just feel like these books do not represent me at all, okay? They do not represent me as a reader in the slightest, and they do not need to be a part of my collection. The last two books that I'm going to be unhauling today, though there's a lot more unhauling that I need to do. I just need to like work on extracting my nostalgic attachment to some of these books, but I'm going to be getting rid of The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding, book 1, and then book 2, which is The Last Life of Prince Alistair. I love Alexandra Bracken. I love her books, but this was the one book, I've not read both of these books, I've only read the first book, but The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding is the one book that I've read by Alexandra Bracken where I just kind of felt in the middle about it. I just felt iffy about it, I felt okay about it, and I've spent so much time away from this duology that I just don't ever foresee myself myself reading this book. I feel like if I were to read this book, I would have to reread this book, and I don't foresee myself ever getting the inspiration to pick this back up and reread it. Like, I just don't see it in the future. I don't see it in the near future. I just don't feel like it's going to happen. So I feel like it's best if I just part ways with this and move on with my life. I feel like my cousin's kid might really enjoy this duology, so I'm going to pass it along to them. This is a middle grade duology, so I feel like it'd be perfect for her to check out and read. That is it for this brutal and Yap Fest book unhaul. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope some of you guys aren't mad at me for unhauling some books. But listen, we're all different, and that's beautiful, okay? That's what makes the world beautiful, is that we're all different. I'm gonna stop. I will say, I do feel lighter every time I unhaul books that I don't love, or I unhaul books that I know I'll never read. I just feel brand new. I feel like I'm freeing up more space on my bookshelves for books that I know that I'm going to love. And I'm excited to one day, like, finally have a collection that I feel like does me justice as a reader. Because I still, even right now, I'm like, there's several books on here that I should get rid of. I will work on that, and I will come back to you guys. But if you guys have any tips for me, let me know down below in the comments when it comes to book unhauling. How do you approach book unhauling? Are you somebody that like loves to own every book that you read? Are you somebody that only owns books that you love? Let me know what your mindset is when it comes to your book collection. I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon, and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, yo!